Hello, everyone. Welcome to our virtual Wilkes-Barre Connect Spotlight Series Women's Network event. Today, we have the pleasure of hearing from three of our area's incredible women entrepreneurs, including our featured speaker, Clancy Cash Harrison, and our two spotlight speakers, Corinne Farrell and Natalie Lynn. All three of these women have focused their energy on promoting health and wellness across NEPA, and especially in a time like this, their efforts and their insights are so valuable to the people in our region. So we are incredibly honored to have them here to share their experiences with us today. But before we jump in, our Wilkes-Barre Connect Spotlight Series events would not be possible without the continued support of Penn State Wilkes-Barre through the Invent Penn State initiative. At this time, I'd like to welcome Dr. Dale Jones, Chancellor of Penn State Wilkes-Barre, to share some opening remarks and introduce our featured speaker. Dr. Jones?
Thank you, Shawnee. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to today's Wilkes-Barre Connect Spotlight Series Speaker event. I'm Dale Jones, Chancellor at Penn State Wilkes-Barre. Penn State Wilkes-Barre is honored to continue to sponsor the Spotlight Speakers Program for this upcoming season. The Chamber of Commerce, Wilkes-Barre Connect, and all of its partners consistently feature truly amazing speakers. I wish we were all together at the Think Center in downtown Wilkes-Barre as we normally are, but today our program is being presented to you in the virtual mode. Thank you for being with us today for today's superb speakers. All of them are successful local women entrepreneurs. And now I would like to introduce our featured speaker. As a registered dietitian, TEDx speaker, international speaker, and author, Clancy Harrison challenges the way food insecurity is approached in the United States. Her mission to demolish the stigma around healthy food access places her on the cutting edge of advocacy. Clancy is the founder of the Food Dignity Project, a strategic program for leaders who want to shift how they approach nutrition outreach by making healthy food access a priority. She transforms the lives of thousands of people through her work with corporations, nonprofit organizations, and universities. Currently, Clancy is an advisory board member for the Pennsylvania American Academy of Pediatrics Food Insecurity EPIC program, ambassador of the National Dairy Council, and the president of the Owl Beach West Side Food Pantry. Since the onset of COVID-19, Clancy has distributed nearly 1 million meals in her community to improve access to healthy food through effective collaborations. You can tune in weekly with Clancy at the Food Dignity Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome and introduce a true leader who is changing lives and making our community a better place. Clancy Harrison.
Hello, everyone. I'm Clancy Harrison, and I'm the president of the Owl Beach West Side Food Pantry in Kingston, Pennsylvania. We are located in the Church of Christ Uniting on Market Street. And I'm also the founder of the Food Dignity Project. So I am a recovering food elitist. And what do I mean by that? Well, I'm a recovering food snob, and probably according to many other people, I still am. And that's okay. But where it's not okay was, as a dietitian, I would project that out into the world. So, for example, when I would work with my patients or my clients, I just assumed that they had access to the food that I wanted them to eat. I would jump into nutrition education. I wouldn't even talk about barriers or ask them about barriers to food access. So, for example, I assumed that people could get into their car and drive to a grocery store. Mistake number 1 and 2. And then when they got to that grocery store, the grocery store would be full of gorgeous fresh produce and wholesome dairy, grains full of fiber, and lean meats. Mistake number 3. And then the worst mistake of all was that when they got to the cashier, they could open up their wallet and pay for the food that I wanted them to eat because we did proper planning and proper budgeting. Mistake number 4. And when I look back on that, that was pretty unethical, if not a lot unethical on my part, especially as a dietitian. And then in 2014, my book came out called Feeding Baby, and I took it a step further. So in this book, again, I wrote it from a mindset of my lifestyle. Of course, there was evidence-based research, and all of my great feeding philosophies were wonderful when it came to feeding a baby. But what I did was I would put certain foods on a pedestal, right? So I would use words like organic, free range. The more local, the better. Obviously, the happier the chicken, the happier the cow, the healthier it was for us. And then I would create fear, shame, and possibly even guilt around other foods. So I used words like toxic or red food coloring for red food coloring in foods. And again, that was pretty unethical on my part, right? Because I was assuming people could make choices or make decisions on the same choices I have available to me. And here's two pictures of me in kitchens. And this was a long time ago when I was trying to project things out into the world of how I lived a certain lifestyle on social media. And the truth is, they weren't even my kitchens. How ridiculous is that? I wasn't even being true to myself, the ones in my mother's house and the ones in my cousins in North Carolina. And again, I wanted to be something that I wasn't. I wasn't true to myself. So about 10 years ago, I became the president of the food pantry. And during that time, I had to make a decision because there's a lot of work involved and it's not paid, it's volunteer. And it was the first time my kids were both in school full time and I had some free time. And I thought, you know what, this is going to be a perfect opportunity because it's across the street from my kids' school. And I love to help people. I was a food service director. But then when I went home, I started to really think about it. And I said to myself, you know what, Clancy, you're a rule follower and you're going to get really upset because there's going to be people coming in who might not need the free food, but they're coming for the free food anyways. There might be people taking advantage of food assistance programs or living off of welfare when they should be going to work instead of using our tax dollars. And again, I wasn't having these conversations with other people. This was an internal dialogue that I was having with myself. And I realized that that might have triggered or upset someone, but it's my truth. And it's what I thought was true at that time. Is it true? Absolutely not. And we'll get into that in a minute. But the good voice started to speak, right? The good voice said, you know what, Clancy, it's not your place to judge. Just jump in, go help people. And if you help one person, be proud of that. So I did that. I became the president of the food pantry. And during that time, I was recruited by the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics to be a leader in the Community Voice Project. And the purpose of this project was to bring the real story of hunger to Congress, not just statistics. And all I had to do was sit and talk to people. I didn't have to worry about nutrition stuff, like what are you eating, what you should eat, diet recalls, all of that stuff. I didn't have to worry about that. I just had to listen. For the first time, I listened and I collected stories. I interviewed people and I started to realize I was wrong. I was wrong when I had that internal conversation, whether to be the president or not to be the president. And when I started looking at the research and when I started looking at the people around me at the food pantry and listening to these stories, the truth is that people who come to our food pantry, they're working or they're looking for work. We're seeing this a lot now because of COVID, but just because COVID is here now doesn't mean it was different before. It was still the same. We have people who are disabled. Maybe they have an illness. They're single moms or women running from domestic violence. We have elderly guests who have slipped through the cracks of our society. We shake well, not now. We used to shake veterans' hand. Now we wave to them or give them, the high elbow. But we have veterans coming through our line, and it's not just one or two. It's a lot of veterans are coming through our line at the food pantry. So the whole purpose is for this is that, and a big piece of my learning experience was that hunger is not a third world problem. Hunger is a Luzerne County problem. It's in every zip code. It's in every neighborhood. It's someone who looks like you and maybe even dress nice, and they might even drive a Lexus, right? You can't eat a Lexus if you lost your job. So I made a lot of assumptions of what I thought hunger was, and I had a lot of judgments, and I still have judgments. It's just I take a step back now and I check my judgments. So you see a picture of a $5 bill and three $1 bills. And this happened probably a month ago. When people are coming through our drive-through operation at the food pantry, they're usually giving us small donations, whether it's $1 or $5. And it's probably has a lot to do with their dignity, probably has a lot to do with the fact that they want to feel that they're contributing, not just receiving. And I remember when we run out of food, we will give people some money and say, you know what, here's $10, go buy the milk and eggs that we ran out of. And it came down where I only had the $8 and it was wadded up and it was dirty. And a lady pulled up and I'm like, oh, I don't want to give this to her because it's going to be insulting. What is she going to do with $8? How is that really going to help her? But then that same good voice that encouraged me to be the president of the food pantry started talking and said, you know what, just give it to her. Give her the $8 and just walk away. And so I did that. And as I walked away, she started to cry and she started to scream, thank you. And I turned around and I had a conversation with her. And she said, we used the last of our gas to get here so we could have food to eat. My son is the only one that works now because of COVID. And we did not know how he was going to get to work tomorrow. We didn't have gas money. And you just gave us the money to get him to work. So again, I found myself in a place of projecting what I thought $8 was worth onto other people. And again, I'm glad I had that good voice, right? So here's a picture of our food pantry. This is back in March 2019. If you were to look at it, you would see Kim sitting there waiting to sign people in. We have our bags for 35 families all packed up, and then the produce table for people to take whatever produce that they want. You see the food on the stage. That would be the amount of food we would go through an entire month. If you were able to see Kim, behind Kim, it would be a completely empty fellowship hall, maybe a lot of empty chairs around a piano. So the picture below is not only do we have the stuff on the stage, if not more, this is the fellowship hall that was empty. This is the amount of food for one distribution. So if we really compare it, a month's worth of food is gone within 3 hours of our operation. We've increased by 1,700%. It is, our lines have been as long as 2 miles. We've had people line up as early as 10:21 for a 2 o'clock distribution. We have now changed that to a 12 o'clock start with our distribution. So we have our hands full, but we're ready to go. We're sticking to our guns and we're going to fight hunger. And it's something we all feel we've been training for since the 80s. Our food pantry has been around. So I would like to take this time to thank all of the volunteers because without them, we couldn't do that. Our community collaboration is insanely amazing. So what changes did I have to make? Because remember, this was a volunteer job. I've made a career out of this, and I call it social entrepreneurship. And actually, I didn't coin that. It's called social entrepreneurship. And I had to make changes within myself. So the first change is that I saw myself as the problem, not the solution. If you were to talk to me 15 years ago, I thought I knew it all. I thought I was the solution. I was a dietitian. I'm going to fight weight loss, obesity. We're going to, cure diabetes, like you name it. I was ready. I would throw spaghetti at the wall and hope something would stick. So if someone said, Clancy, can you talk about oncology, nutrition, or heart disease, or women's health, weight loss, worksite wellness, sign me up. I would go and do it. And when I look back, I was really only hitting the surface level. I wasn't really diving deep. I probably didn't really know a lot about what I was talking about, if I'm going to be completely honest. And so I was not the expert everything in nutrition. And the other thing I had to realize was that even though I know a lot about food and nutrition, I'm not an expert in someone's life. So I can't really tell people what to eat without knowing their barriers, right? It has to be something that they decide and what's culturally appropriate for them. and what's appropriate for their family and their budget. And it's a lot more than just talking about budget. It's talking about transportation. It's talking about childhood experiences. It's talking about racism. It's talking about a lot of things that is involved in food equity. The other thing is I challenge my judgments. I just showed you that I challenge my judgments every single day. It's very natural for us to judge. I think if we find ourselves in a situation where we really feel that we're right, we're probably wrong, or at least be willing to say, I feel so strongly that I'm right that maybe I am wrong and let me learn. I also seek to understand people way before I want them to understand me. So there's a piece there, right? I used to always want them to understand what I wanted them to eat and where to go to get the food. Now I seek to understand the why behind food choices. Here's just a really great example. I had a dietitian after I got off of a national stage. She sent me a message and she said, because of your keynote, I wanted to find out the why behind someone who I was getting very aggravated with, my patient. She would always eat instant noodles, potato chips, even though she was on SNAP, which is what we know as food stamps. She wouldn't use all of her money. And I was about to give up on her. And then I heard you speak. And so I had that difficult conversation. We have the trust. We started talking about why she eats the chips or the instant noodles versus what, and that you shouldn't. And the lady said, when I go grocery shopping, I have to take 2 buses. And when I get to the grocery store, there's a very busy street. And I have to cross that street. And I'm a single mom. I have 2 kids that are young. So my number one thing is that they have to be safe. And then when we go grocery shopping, we still have to cross that street. And I have to protect them. And then when we get on the bus, I can't have a whole bunch of groceries because I can't take up other people's seats. So there's a lot of planning that goes involved, right? But she said to her, my number one criteria for picking out a food is that it has to be light. It cannot weigh a lot because I have to be able to maneuver and protect my kids. And so after this dietitian understood the why behind those food choices, she could have a different conversation with her. She could be more empathetic. The person, her patient, became seen and understood. So it's very important that we seek to understand other people before we really want them to understand us. And this could be, taken on all levels of our life and all different circumstances. And then the other thing, and I think this is one of probably the most important things because it's my mantra, that my purpose is greater than my fear. And so am I nervous to speak on this platform in front of you? Yes. Am I nervous when I'm in front of many people? Yes. But I always say to myself, my purpose is greater than my fear, and I want to fight hunger, and I need to speak my truth. And it was very intimidating when I first talked about having misconceptions. I was very worried, am I going to hurt people's feelings? Are people going to think I'm snobby? Are people going to think I'm mean? But the reality is it's a process of change, right? So I've taken all of these steps, and I've been able to see myself. I was a problem, and now I've been able to see myself in the solution. And sometimes when you see something, you can't unsee it. And it just changed my professional and my personal mission. I like to say that it was turned right side up. So what ended up happening was when I was doing those interviews with the Community Voice Project, I interviewed myself. I recorded an interview with myself, and I thought, this is so silly. But I did it, and I submitted it, and I was one of the 5 people selected nationally to go and speak. It was a great honor. From that came a TEDx. I got really scared because I started to be invited to major national speaking engagements, and I hired a speaking coach who changed my life. If anyone's interested in that, just reach out to me. My contact information is at the end. But I started to speak in front of 5,000 people. And then last December, I was invited to go to Egypt to speak at the World Youth Forum. And I shared a panel with major leaders in world hunger. I mean, the executive director of the World Food Program, I'm sitting next to, and I'm posing it with pictures. And I never thought I never would have dreamt that that would have been my career, or that's where I'd be, or this is where I am now. But all it did was me speaking my truth, me believing in the power of my voice. And so if we think about what my wishes for all of us, everyone watching, is that I want you to know that there is power in your voice, that your story is important. You might think it's insignificant, like I did. It's not. Everyone needs to hear your story. And I think if you find a situation that you see is not right, again, sometimes I think the smaller the better, right? Like for me, I'm just concentrating on the stigma associated with food assistance programs, right? The misconceptions associated with it. I want to normalize it. I want people to understand the real face of hunger. I'm not trying to really cure hunger, although that would be great if it would happen. But I'm trying to correct the problem I saw myself, because I can tell you as a speaker and traveling and talking to people and just talking to people here locally, a lot of people ask me the same questions I would have asked myself 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And so if you can see a problem and you are willing to put yourself out there and be vulnerable and be transparent and be willing to take a step back, willing to learn, and I think ultimately willing to be wrong, you're going to change the world, because you'll change the world for one person, and that one person will change the world for someone else. And it will just there'll be a major ripple effect. And I've been doing this probably now 6 years speaking. I'm starting to see that. And it's an honor. It's an honor to be here speaking with you. It's an honor every time someone wants to listen to me talk about being a food snob, right? But anyways, I just want to say thank you. If you have been inspired to share your story of food insecurity or hunger, maybe you experienced it as a child or somewhere in your life, please reach out to me. We are doing stories on the Food Dignity podcast. You don't have to share your name. Or maybe you're doing something to fight hunger, or maybe it might not be about hunger, but maybe it's something with changing the world, making it better, because with less judgment. I would love to talk to you. So my contact information's there. And again, if you want to learn anything about my speaking coach, I will definitely share her information with you. And again, thank you. It's been an honor. Good luck, everyone. Keep up the great work, and certainly be safe during such a difficult time.
Thank you, Clancy. We absolutely love what you do, and your insights are so valuable to us. So we are so incredibly grateful that you were able to share that with us and really share your experiences with a group of people that really look up to you. So we appreciate that so much. Thank you. So up next, we have one of our spotlights, Corinne Farrell, the owner of Balance Yoga and Wellness. Corinne's willingness to help is unmatched, and she has a true understanding of health and wellness. Her studio is always offering something new, with access to teachers that help us grow and become aware of ourselves and the processes that we should take. Corinne, thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, thank you so much, everyone, for giving me the opportunity to talk to everybody. I started my journey into this path of balance, yoga, and wellness at a time where I really wasn't sure who I was going to be anymore. I had finished up a job that I really enjoyed, and I didn't want to go back to a corporate environment that I was in previous to that. So I started coming to yoga practice to figure out who I was, what I wanted to do, and get in touch a little bit with the feelings that I had and the work that I wanted to do, and how to manifest those into something that could really give me a foundation to support my family and keep myself well. It was really important to me to be around positive people. I tend to do best when I'm around other people who are trying to do their best. So my time on the mat just filled me with so much joy and gratitude, determination. It showed me how strong I was and how flexible. And I felt like I wanted to show that to the rest of the world. So I began my teacher training through Balance. So from a student to doing their teacher training. And that teacher training was a lot of time spent away from my family, focusing on the practice. And I didn't have the financial means to pay for that all at once. So I worked the desk there to help offset the cost of the training. And then I started teaching yoga, and I would teach everywhere and anywhere that I could. I took a lot of the comments about, you'll never make a living doing this. It's not realistic. You won't be able to make anything of this. It's just a hobby. And I use those to fuel me into feeling as powerful as possible. Maybe a little bit like, I'll show you, but it was important to me that I keep striving forward. And that's something that was probably with me all my life. So I was lucky to have that inside of me already. People would say like, oh, you can't ride your bike that far. And I would do it. And, well, you can't commute on your bike. And I would do that too, or whatever it might be. I really enjoyed finding those feelings of progress inside of myself. So after I did my teacher training, I taught classes, and Jennifer Saramboli, who is the owner of Balance Yoga at that time, was just instrumental and a great mentor. She had said to me, you would be a great golfer. And I didn't even know what that was. So I looked it up and thought, well, it was, out of my budget and 3 months away from my family. It wasn't going to be possible. And I just turned my focus back to teaching yoga and doing as best as I could in that avenue. And then I got into the program for structural integration, which is like a kind of Rolfing, probably a year and a half, 2 years later. And then I needed my massage certification in order to practice that. And I sold my bicycle to help pay for my massage therapy training. And that gave me another facet into wellness and another way of looking at the body. So between personal training and exercise to yoga and now to massage therapy and looking at how the body's connected, I got to see what mental and physical and emotional things, how they impact the body and what that looks like. So it gave me more tools to be able to help the students that I saw. And when I finished my massage training, Jen had said to me like, oh, rent a room at Balance. And I said no, because there's no way that anybody's going to come and I won't be able to pay the rent. So it would be crazy. So she was gracious and allowed me to do some massage work here on a split so that I could build some clientele and not have that fearful overhead of the rent. And then after a month or so, she said, you would make more if you just paid rent and were on your own. And I was like, no, I think it's a fluke. I don't think anyone's really going to come. And she was like, it's not a fluke. You're doing a really good job and you should just rent the room. So I did. And then I rented an office as well, this office that I'm in now. And then after some time, like I felt that foundation of I can do this. I could run this. And it was at like the perfect timing where things in her life started to shift as I was coming up. And it was a perfect time for me to take over as the owner of Balance. So we figured out the sale of the business and I started taking Balance on as my focus. And I did this with my kids and having the ups and downs of that. It wasn't easy to figure out, how much time to spend in the studio and how much time to spend with my family. And I certainly took a back seat for probably 2 years where I felt my health going down and I wasn't feeling right. And then one day I looked myself in the mirror and I looked in my eyes and I didn't really recognize that person anymore. It just wasn't the same. And that's when I knew, okay, the split of the pie in my time, the family and the business was not working. I needed to be in there. So I started carving out more time for myself and focusing on my health and my nutrition and scheduling the time for myself, which was very scary in the beginning. But I know that it enabled me to be able to keep going. So if I didn't take care of myself, I see it every day. People get sick from the stress. They get broken down, and it's hard to come back from that. So as women in business, we have many balls in the air, lots of juggling that we have to do. And sometimes the feeling of the me ball, my time ball, can easily be set down because it feels like the only person you're disappointing is yourself, and that feels easier than everyone else. But creating really strong boundaries around, this is the time for this, and this is the time for this, and this is the time for me, it was a big deal. And it enabled me, I think, to really grow the business and to really get clear about the directions I wanted to go in, because I felt good. So I hope that all of you that are watching this, if you're involved in business yourself, if you're considering or you are supportive of someone who's running their business, that you keep in mind how important it is, that self-care component. So thank you so very much. You guys have a great day.
Thank you again, Corinne. Your work is incredible, and I think I can speak on behalf of us all for saying that the journey that you took to get to where you are today is absolutely incredible, and we appreciate you sharing that experience with us. So thank you. So our final spotlight for this event is Natalie Lynn. Natalie is the owner and operator of Counterpart Kombucha and the co-owner and operator of the Canning House. Natalie started Counterpart Kombucha nearly 7 years ago when her hobby grew into a business. From selling out of the trunk of her car to over 70 businesses, she certainly learned a lot along the way. With the main focus being wholesale relationships, she also has a direct-to-customer program. A year and a half ago, she and her partner, Connor Scaliat, opened the Canning House in 40 Fort. A self-taught entrepreneur with no sights set on stopping anytime soon. While the past few months have been challenging, it has also been a time for her to focus relentlessly on being creative and navigating the unknown. So thank you for being here with us, Natalie.
All right. Hi, everyone. I am Natalie Lynn, owner and operator of Counterpart Kombucha and the Canning House. I'm really honored to be here today to discuss both being an entrepreneur and also the topic of keeping it all together, mental and physical health during this new normal that we are experiencing all together here. Certainly, these have been incredibly difficult times for everyone, and navigating two businesses throughout it has proven to take quite a large amount of energy. For the past 7 years, I've lived my life as an entrepreneur, and throughout this time, I have learned many lessons. I've identified what I believe to be some of the key components to making it work, keeping it together in the meantime, and of course, finding happiness along the way. For me, that is blinders, breakthroughs, and balance. And that's what it comes down to me, for me, pretty much every single day. I remember these things, I keep them at the forefront of my mind every day. Being an entrepreneur is something that takes a consistent amount of focus, determination, and drive. And when I first began Counterpart Kombucha, it was a simple home run business. I was running it from my home, selling it once a week. It was really simple. And as that grew alongside me, so did all of the things that I had to learn and navigate throughout that time. As it turned into a real business, that's when the learning curve really got real. Many bumps arose along the way, and Riding the waves became kind of like a slogan that I used a lot. It was just about riding the waves. This prepared me as well as it could have for what's going on right now globally, and certainly within our area, of course, with, of course, the coronavirus pandemic. As the shutdowns had began in March, it took quick action, I think, for everybody, and on both the side of Counterpart and also for the canning house. It just took us having to immediately make decisions, get creative. We worked day in and day out, coming up with creative solutions, a delivery program. We started a new business, Grocer Collective, along the way. As it was harder and harder to source groceries, we realized that there's a really fine line between what's available in grocery stores as opposed to what's available when you're a restaurant. The sourcing's different, it's different supply chains. So we took advantage of that and we decided to make it work, start a new business. And due to the global glass shortage, had to get creative with the kombucha and switch over to growlers. It was really hard to find the bottles I used. Lids started to become nearly extinct. And that was, of course, quite the wave to ride. Being in the beverage business and suddenly not being able to source bottles, that's obviously a bit of an issue. But perfect only exists in a perfect world, and our world just isn't perfect like that. Without the blinders on, it simply would not have been able to get out of that state of overwhelm and found solutions. So for me, keeping your blinders on is what ultimately keeps you moving forward, facing the hardest days, and there are many, and keeping your eyes on what's the most important. It's easy to look around, to compare, feel competitive, or feel like you're falling behind in comparison to someone else. But when you stay looking straight ahead, focus becomes inevitable and much easier. As for breakthroughs are what I truly believe to be one of the most important things to recognize as an entrepreneur and as someone, I think, just generally in life as well. Allow the world, your customers, your wins and your fails to really teach you something. Failure and mistakes are some of the very best teachers, and that sounds cliche, but there's so much truth in that. And I found it imperative to pay good attention to these teaching moments. To get to a breakthrough, sometimes things have to get really tough, and oftentimes that's how that goes. But on the other side of tough, there are lessons and then breakthroughs. So keep the blinders on and be ready and willing to accept the journey of a breakthrough and getting there, because it's not always easy. Coronavirus has really shaken up the norm for all of us. Our day-to-day lives changed so dramatically, and of course, we're still experiencing that. Suddenly, our work lives, social lives, family lives, everything were really shaken up and left to really fall where they landed. And at this particular time in our world history and in our lives, it really brings me to the next point with really a new kind of weight, which is balance. This can be the most difficult part to manage as an entrepreneur, and I think just as a human being. We're so overstimulated. There's so much in life that's going on. We're alerted via email, phone calls, text messages, just on top of our daily lists. So balance can seem like an end goal, and it can be, oh, I've achieved it, great, but that's just not how that works. And in reality, balance takes continual effort, and it's not somewhere that you arrive. One day, it's not just, oh, I am perfectly balanced. It takes, continual care and continual effort. Some things, as I've learned, have to really fall to the bottom of the list in order to have balance. Some emails, some tasks needing phone calls, some of these things need to take an extra day to be executed properly. Sometimes these things take 2 extra days to get to because your plate's full and you aren't willing to skip lunch. This can seem counterintuitive because don't we feel like balance is like, oh, we are able to do it all. We're able to balance it all. But being an entrepreneur requires all of you, not just your acumen or your skills, not just your tough decision-making. The energy within us really needs to be cared for. I've done it the wrong way and I've done it the right way. And I will tell you the difference in working towards balance and disregarding it are just absolutely immense. At a time, I had thought, what it meant to be successful and to run a business and be an entrepreneur is to work all the time, sacrifice sleep sometimes, sacrifice time with people that you love, skip a meal because you don't have time, or, eat something that's just not nourishing at all because it's quick and it's fast and we need to keep getting things done. So balance for me has turned into something that, of course, I think about every day and I really strive for, and I put the effort into that every day. If that means I just take an extra 20 minutes to drink my coffee with no phone, with no computer, that for me is me working towards having that balance so that I can stay fresh in my mind and so I can stay healthy, because of course, without that, I can't really expect to have much else. I've learned just how important it is to say, you know what, today I'm done for the day. I could use some time to relax, to read a book, eat a leisurely meal, go for a walk. The stress of running a business can consume who you are, or the stress of running a business can help you to create who you are. I think that it's easy to look at ourselves and say, oh, I'm just always overwhelmed. Oh, I just always have so much to do. I'm so busy all the time. But what we can do and what we have the opportunity to do as people, and especially as entrepreneurs, is you have this sort of freedom to create the life that you'd like to have. So there's no easy way of not being a victim to that. However, the energy and the effort it takes is certainly worth it in the long run. The stress, as I've talked about, of running a business is very real. And that's where all of these components really come together. Learning to listen to your body, learning to listen to your mind. It's most certainly the fuel that will keep you going. And throughout all of the things that are unknown and the future and what may happen, and coronavirus has been a great example of this. You can't know what tough thing is ahead, but what you can do is you can know that you are doing your best and you're putting the effort in every day to really be prepared for that, because that is just life. Rest when you need to rest. Talk to people you trust and love when you feel stuck, when you're having a hard time getting up on that surfboard to ride the wave that you're on at the time. Lean on people and learn to really work the muscles of navigating your emotions, and put nothing above your own sanity or your own peace. Not the phone call that you think is emergent. There are always going to be many things on the list, and not everything can always get done in the same day, in the same week. I think being flexible is really important. And I think that's also really hard as an entrepreneur. You feel, that you are responsible for balancing everything, for getting everything done. But I think that truly during this pandemic, it's been a lesson all around of the fact that, we're people, we're humans. And, whether you're running your own business, or not, there's an element of life that can't be ignored, which is that we are here and we are living it. We're meant to enjoy this. There's a lot of different career paths that are very consuming. And I think that the best thing that you can do is to be mindful and remember that you're running it and it's not running you. To really prioritize those things and stay healthy, stay clear. And it's little wins every day. Maybe it is really hectic and you have so much to do that it is every day, all the time. There's always the 20 minutes to have your coffee and look out the window or go for a walk. It's just about getting creative and, of course, staying positive, looking forward, and just getting, these key elements really down. And then you're off to the races. Never gets easier, but, with practice, it becomes just like anything else. It almost becomes a habit. You stay positive, you push yourself, you aim to be more balanced, you look forward and think, here's a problem. Okay, I'll find a solution. And you just, learn to navigate it one day at a time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Natalie. Your experiences as an entrepreneur were so great to hear about. And I definitely understand that it's such a crazy experience for you, but we're glad that you're willing to share about those, even the high and the low points. So thank you for being so open to sharing. And with that, that concludes our virtual Wilkes-Barre Connect Spotlight Series Women's Network event. But before we close the event, we want to put in a quick promotion for an initiative that we are running through the Chamber called Project Evolve. We are hosting industry roundtables to identify challenges and opportunities in each of our local areas' major industries so that we can provide them with solutions. So before the roundtable discussions, we have surveys open for businesses to take to provide us with information on their challenges. And this week in particular, we have our survey open for the accommodations and food services industry. And we invite businesses in those industries to reach out to Timothy Ohms or really any chamber representative that you can reach out to get the link to that survey and just take a few minutes to fill that out. In the future, we will also have surveys and roundtables for manufacturing, construction, transportation, and warehousing, other services such as wholesale trade, professional and technical services, and finance and insurance. So if you are in any of those industries, please be on the lookout for those. We would love to have your feedback on them. I want to again thank Dr. Jones, Chancellor of Penn State Wilkes-Barre, for sponsoring our Spotlight events. We could not do it without your incredible partnership and the support through the Penn State initiative in Penn State. So thank you again to our 3 incredible women entrepreneurs, not just for speaking to us and for us today, but for everything that you're doing for our region. I think being such staples for health and wellness is something so admirable and so key in everything that we have to do in our new normal and in just going about our daily lives today. So we thank you. And with that, we hope you're all safe and healthy, and I thank you for watching.